All right, the first one is from Corey Scott Johnson. Hey, John, longtime subscriber since the AMC Closet Space movie talk.
Way back.
Yeah. I was wondering if you saw this story about Liam Neeson. I can't help but feel hurt by this. Being black, I understand you being angry about the situation that happened to your friend, but choosing to attack any black person on the street you saw is messed up and harkens back top Jim Crow. Just wanted to get your opinion on this story. Thanks, and may the filthy keep winter from coming.
All right, thanks a lot for that, Corey. And yeah, so for those of you who have not seen this, it's a really kind of surprising thing because, you're talking about how everybody likes Ron Howard, right? Everybody likes Liam Neeson. The Liam Neesons?
Yeah.
Everybody loves the Liam Neesons. And so Liam Neeson, in promoting his new film, I can't remember the name of it.
Cold
something.
Something.
Cold Crisis.
It
Cold
looks
Crisis.
good.
Cold Case. No, whatever.
Fargo with an Irishman.
By the way, that I thought looked like a throwaway movie, and all of a sudden now it's pulling a 92% of Rotten Tomatoes.
Yeah.
So it's like, what? Anyway.
Cold Pursuit?
Cold Pursuit. Thank you, Ashley.
All right.
I love the Liam Neesons. But in doing press for Cold Pursuit, he was asked a question about, I guess his character, I haven't seen the movie yet, but this character is really driven by anger because of something that wronged him or his family, driven by anger and rage. And he was asked about that, and he got very personal. Now, there are a lot of headlines running around saying, Liam Neeson wanted to attack random black people in the streets and all that kind of stuff. This is a little long, but I think for us to really address this situation, we need to hear in context exactly what he said, okay? So let's take a look. So remember, Liam Neeson's asked about this. He was asked, can you relate with your character and the anger and rage and being driven to do things and being controlled by anger and stuff like that? Well, what he did was he started to tell a story that happened a number of years ago.
40 years ago.
Okay, it was many years ago, where a female friend who was very close to him was raped. All right? Horrible, horrible thing, right? And how he responded to that. Now, this is what he said, okay? And we're going to go through this verbatim because I think it's worth doing to put this all in context. Liam Neeson said the following. She handled the situation of the rape in the most extraordinary way. But my immediate reaction was, did she know who it was? No? What color were they? She said it was a black person. I went up and down the areas with a kosh, that's a crowbar, hoping I'd be approached by somebody. I'm ashamed to say that, and I did it for maybe a week, hoping some, and then he does air quotes, black bastard would come out. And we move on to the next part, come out of a pub and have a go at me about something, so that I could kill him. It was horrible when I think back that I did that. It's awful, but I did learn a lesson from it. When I eventually thought, what the F are you doing? I come from a society, I grew up in Northern Ireland in the Troubles. And I knew a couple of guys that died on hunger strike. I had acquaintances who were very caught up in the Troubles, and I understand that need for revenge. But it just leads to more revenge, to more killing, and Northern Ireland's proof of that. All this stuff that's happening in the world, the violence is proof of that, I think it's important that we hear that entire statement, because if you just read a headline, Liam Neeson was targeting black people for whatever. If you just read that headline, that's shocking.
Shocking.
It's shocking and disturbing and enraging. But when you read the whole story, you're reading about a guy who's saying, look, anger does terrible things to us. And then nobody found this out in an expose. He volunteered this. He said, I was controlled by that kind of rage. My friend gets violated. I find out it's from this type of person that they were violated for. So I was and by the way, he wasn't just looking for anybody random on the street. He says, walking around hoping somebody would come and attack him.
Right.
He wasn't saying he was just going out to target anybody in the street. He said he wanted to kill somebody who might come out and attack him. So that's a big difference. But he's saying, and then I realized this is horrible. I'm letting anger control me. And anger only leads to more anger. And violence only leads to more violence. And killing only leads to more killing. And I come from a society, says Liam Neeson, where I saw that in action and proof. And it's terrible. And you can't let it control you like that. That was the moral of his story. That's what he was saying. And quite frankly, for anybody to suggest that, I've never let anger get the better part of me. I've never either done or thought about doing something really stupid in the midst of feeling really outrageously angry is a lie. It's an absolute lie. I mean, really, Rob, when you think about it, it's like masturbation. You know, we love talking about masturbation here on the show. Everybody does it, but ain't nobody wants to admit to it. And all he did was just admit what everybody felt at some point. But said through that, he learned a lesson, and he realized how horrible that was that he was in the midst of that. He never once thought he was justified in doing that. He never once said it was right that he was doing that. And he could have said, if he found out the person that violated his friend was somebody with orange hair, he would have been out hunting for somebody with orange hair. I mean, so I understand the shock value of the headline. And if all there was to it was the headline, I would completely agree. But this is a man telling a story about how he fell into anger and learned from it, realized it was horrible, and then his ultimate moral lesson was, guys, this isn't the way you need to run the world. Violence begets violence, killing begets killing, nothing fixes everything, and that was the moral lesson. I think when people take the time to read the whole story and what it was he was volunteering and saying, I think it changes the narrative here a bit. I mean, look, it's not right, but he himself is telling us it's not right. I don't know. How did you react when you read about this, Robert?
Well, first of all, I did what any sane or rational person, when they're confronted by something they want to get mad about, does, which is to go back and read what was actually said by Liam Neeson. And I feel exactly the same way you do. I think the important lesson to take away from this is that Liam Neeson didn't do anything. Right. He didn't do anything. He was telling a story about how he personally felt and how he was. Look, I had a similar experience to Liam Neeson. I had when I was younger, and that kind of thing. I was gripped with that kind of anger when I wanted to lash out, and I would have killed somebody, and I knew who the person was, and it consumes you. It is a consuming, rage-filled anger that doesn't let go of you, especially if you cared about the person that was violated. You know, I think it's really funny that the point of this story is they're getting mad at Liam Neeson for having... Look, I understand race is a hot-button issue. It always will be, especially in the United States. But the point is that Liam Neeson overcame his anger. He overcame it. He stopped, and his own cooler head prevailed. And I think that's the important thing about this story. And I think that's my takeaway, is that he was conveying. And also, if you know anything about Northern Ireland and what happened there, and it's just a different world. And it bothers me that we live in this. It's almost like people want to be enraged. Like, I think this story, once I went back and read his quotes, I'm like, wow, man, he got a grip on himself. He didn't have to go to therapy. He didn't have to get thrown in jail to learn the lesson. He understood it because he thought through his anger and his situation, and he realized what he was doing was wrong. And that's what's important. He didn't hurt anyone. He didn't go out and act on that anger. And we can all learn a lesson from what he had to say.
You know, I read somebody I know wrote out to me and said, you know, the fact that somebody he knew was violated like that doesn't excuse it.
Not at all.
Of course it doesn't. And you know who said that? Liam Neeson.
Right.
That doesn't. That's why Liam Neeson says, so wait, what the F am I doing? This is horrible. It's horrible. Like, he himself said that. And I think, again, if this was a matter of some reporter undug this old story of him and brought it to light, that's one thing. He volunteered this as a lesson for all of us that, like, hey, like this, look, even me, Liam Neeson, the Liam Neesons, even I am subject to this, and we got to overcome it. And
well, they try and make it into some racial issue. The last time we saw Liam Neeson on screen, he was married to Viola Davis, and they had like tender sex scenes, you know. And I remember I read a tweet.
Please don't describe Liam Neeson's sex scenes to me. I don't need to hear description.
Well, I mean, I'm
tender
just,
or otherwise.
I'm just saying that they had a relationship, an interracial marriage that was shown to be a loving interracial marriage, and it wasn't even about the differences in race. They were just a man and a woman who were married, you know. And I mean, that was some, and I read people complain when Viola Davis was pointing that out. They're like, oh, she just doesn't understand. I'm like, we are so crazy. People are so crazy these days.
But I mean, again, I get, if you just read the headline, I get that reaction, because I read those headlines and I'm like, oh, Liam, what did you do? Liam, what did you do? And then I read it and it's like, oh, okay. So
our entire civilization is going to be clickbaited into its own demise.
Here's what let me defend it just for a second. Let me play devil's advocate for a second. If I'm the publisher of Entertainment Weekly or CNN, how do you sum up those 3 pages of comments I just read in one headline? Right? It's a tricky one. It's like a Liam Neeson. You can't make your headline 50 words long, right? But so I get it. But it's just like I always encourage everybody. Don't just read the headline. If you read the headline and it sparks something in you, dig into it and read what's said. And look, there are still going to be some people that are bothered by this, and I get it.
And they should be.
Somebody walking around with Cobra hoping somebody attacks them so he can beat them to death. That's troubling. It is. So I get that. I just think this story, when you read the whole comments, is more than just the headline. And the first person who will tell you that it was unacceptable was the first person to tell us it was unacceptable, which is Liam Neeson himself. So
Right.
I really don't think this should reflect poorly on Liam. If anything, I thought it was very brave for him to share that story.
Me too.
And I think there's something that a lot of us can learn from that and realize from this object lesson he just gave us.
Well, I just think what's really interesting is that our culture, our online culture, would rather take the opposite tact and not learn and enrage people and get them angry based on a headline because they know people aren't going to delve into the story. They know more people are just going to read this and get angry. I mean, look at all the people that already have been hammering Liam Neeson online. There's a lot of intelligent people that have come out and he's getting hammered. And it's like they didn't read it's like they just read the headline themselves, and they're quick to sort of lambaste him and destroy him and not really listen to what he had to say. And that's the problem. That's what scares me.
I'm just curious, Ashley, you hear these types of headlines, these things. Like, what was your initial reaction to seeing something like that?
My initial reaction was, oh no, what happened?
Yeah.
But then I read it, and I read many articles about it last night and this morning. And, I have 2 sisters, and God forbid if anything happened to them, I think that I would be probably pretty prejudiced against the person or persons who did it. And, I can imagine that where he was at the time 40 years ago, he probably, was reacting in such a natural way that I feel like many people would react to, but then he owned up and realized that he was wrong and he had shame over it, and then he was just sharing a personal story.
Right.
So I don't know. I don't think he's a racist at all. I think that he was just actually starting a conversation that needs to be started.
Or kept going.
Yes.
Actually, very specifically, needs to be kept going.